Hey there, I'm Maggie,
And I'm Kate.
and this is our show, Honestly Though, with Maggie and Kate.
You're listening to season 1, where we're having more of the honest conversations that you won't find in corporate American settings or among polite company.
Every Wednesday for the next 10 weeks, we'll talk openly about common experiences that affect people at work and in life, but aren't usually talked about in business as usual environments.
You won't find a highly polished show in season 1, but we can promise that you're getting the raw and honest perspective of two solopreneurs who outgrew the status quo and are committed to thriving in this next season.
And the most important part is we're not really interested in talking at you. We want to talk with you, so you can join the conversation in the comments or send us a conversation starter for a future episode, and you can find all the ways to get involved in the show notes.
All right, let's get to it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Honestly Though. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Wonderful.
Amazing.
you?
So I'm doing good. I'm in a really energetic mood today. I have had multiple cups of coffee. I got my bangs trimmed and I got a kombucha here. So I'm just feeling
Alrighty.
great. It's amazing.
Okay.
It was just a full moon too, so it could be like that full moon
Yeah.
energy.
Full moon energy. Yeah, agreed. Okay, so I am super excited. And actually, this is probably where a lot of my energy comes from too, because today we have one of my favorite people that I met on LinkedIn last year. Paul Ladipo is here with us. And if you're not already following Paul on LinkedIn, please remedy your situation immediately. Go to the link in the show notes and do that, because Paul is someone who talks about really important topics and does it in a way that is really clear, courageous, bold, and just says things that every time I see one of Paul's posts, it makes me pause and makes me think. And that's the kind of stuff I like. So if you're not already following Paul, please do that. And if you don't know Paul is an autism and anti-racist educator with more than 15 years of experience making places more inclusive. So, hello, Paul. Welcome. And I would love for you to tell us in your own words more about what you do, where you've done it, and all that good stuff.
So I guess like so many other people on LinkedIn and doing podcasts, it's like I had a life in academia and nonprofits in the white collar world or whatever, and just like I was doing DEI work, and I really came not dissatisfied with DEI, but just dissatisfied with the way things are being done in those spaces. And so, and so I just decided just to go online where I had exercise my freedom of speech and just like say what needs to be said, because I know that people can't always say what I say in those spaces, without losing their jobs. And like Maggie and Kay, like I listen to you talk, you talked about like you like kind of hide yourself or you minimize yourself, and people don't really respond to directness, especially in indirect regions of the country or indirect cultures. And so it's like I'm just saying it's just the truth. It's my autism. I hate saying superpower, but just my autism ability. I'm just being direct because I'm giving all the facts. Nothing really no real agenda.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing DEI work? When did you start?
I started, I want to say like probably around 2011, like when I went to graduate school, and I was in grad school for higher education administration, student affairs. And so, I mean, I knew about DEI, but then I really started doing it then. And so like I was an academic advisor, but I was taking all this coursework that talked about racism, sexism, transphobia, homophobia, etc. And identity development. And then and I was an academic advisor, and my students were talking to me about their experiences. And then as time went on, I got less satisfied with their coursework. Like I really just stopped caring about Math 241 or whatever it was, and I want to know what systems are marginalizing you, that keep you from experiencing your best, because I was at a extremely white institution in the middle of conservative Kansas, and I'm like, my Black, Latino, LGBTQ plus students are like, I don't feel it here. There's something off here, and so I was just listening to the stories, and so I just kind of moved away from like the paper pusher, what courses are you taking, and moved into like making these places inclusive.
Mm-hmm. And you launched your own consultancy focused on this. Is that right? And when did you?
I did back in 2022. I did.
Right.
And so I was living in Minneapolis at the time, and the job market was tough. The world was competitive, and like I think a lot of people just, I guess maybe they weren't feeling my passion or me being direct or whatever, and employment gaps, which I'll go to later because undiagnosed autism and whatnot, needs weren't being met. And so I just launched my own consultancy, and it really, that's why I started posting on LinkedIn, because I launched this consultancy and I was trying to use LinkedIn to get clients, but people saw me more of an educator, online advocate than a DI consultant. So I never had that business mind to I guess way of marketing myself. And so I did it for like 2.5 years, almost 3 years, and then I just decided to let it go. But I don't regret anything I did on LinkedIn, and so it had a life of its own. It just took off on its own, and so yeah, here I am.
Yeah. Okay. So one more question on this before we like dive into the whole conversation. I know last year, one of the things that, well, my thing that there were so many things that drew me to you, but one of them was we both had status quo disruptor in our headline. I don't have that in my headline anymore. I don't know if you do
Neither do
either.
I.
Yeah, but we
I
both
don't.
did. And I was like, oh, a kindred spirit, love that. And so, and around that time, maybe a little bit before that, I feel like we were both kind of getting frustrated with the algorithm and like, it will not let me say the things I need to say. Why? But it seems like, at least I still feel like I have the same problem, but it seems like when I look at your content lately, you still are saying the things and your engagement looks incredible. So
Thank
has
you.
that shifted for you in terms of the
It,
LinkedIn algorithm?
it has. So like I don't get that many posts or comments taken down, and when they do, I appeal it and I get it back. And so I've been lucky in some ways, but like you look at the engagement, looks good, but it used to be higher like 2 or 3 years ago. So like
Okay.
2022, 2023, I had like my reach was even bigger. So like I would get in those years, I would get posts that would get like 300, 400,000 impressions, and like I don't get that anymore.
I
And
can't
so
even
I'm looking if I get
imagine.
100,000. And so
Yeah.
so like I mean I know that that's still a line, so I'm not naive, but I'm just saying like I still like I can usually say what I want to say, and I try to dress it up, but like I still don't get the engagement that I did 2 or 3 years ago. Like it just like a couple of posts about white supremacy took off, and I got all sorts of trolls and everything. It was ugly, but it was beautiful too, because I'm like, well, I said what I said. I'm not going to apologize for what I said. So, but
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the trolls because I was just going to ask when you mentioned like some things get taken down and then your big reach. And I was like, oh, okay. So are you being attacked by the trolls and the
yeah,
bots and they're
yeah,
reporting your stuff? Because like, I imagine you're not saying anything
no,
inflammatory or, like anything that actually breaks the rules. It's
if
just
you
that some
if you dig
racist
deep
guy over
enough,
here got mad because you're
yeah, I
black.
know.
Like,
And the thing is, I took down, I blocked and or deleted a bunch of comments and blocked people, and it is cleaned up, But if you dig far enough in my post history, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like a pyramid of overt versus covert white supremacy, and like I did it twice. Both of them went viral, and it's just like it was just something else. It was like I don't
yeah.
know.
And it's crazy because on LinkedIn, it's like, I would expect that on the other platforms because everybody
Yeah,
can hide behind their whatever. It's so crazy to see it on LinkedIn where people are like, with my full chest, and here's my whole voice and my name and my face. And it's like, it's crazy.
I know.
I will say though, a lot of the people that I see in my algorithm that are acting out of pocket like that are very like retired. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yes,
So you're
they have
bored
nothing
and
to
you have
lose.
no one holding you to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They have nothing to
But like
lose.
still, there are those who are not retired, and it's like I will definitely deep dive into your account later because I next time I'm itching for a fight, maybe I'll go.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a magical time. I mean,
Yeah.
they're still not as bad as they are on Facebook or Threads, like because on there they curse more and they use more vulgar language, but it's still a troll. LinkedIn, it's just a different kind of troll, But
It's like harder to
it,
spot on LinkedIn
yeah,
because it is like a real name, a real face, versus like on Threads, it's like a faceless account with a bunch of numbers and letters, and you're like, oh, okay,
right.
you're a troll or a bot. But like on LinkedIn, it's like, what do you mean Sam Smith said this? Like that's such a normal person.
Yeah,
Like,
and I see what they do. I'm like, wow, you're in HR saying this. I'm like, no wonder we're having so many problems.
it's like, oh right, you uphold these systems. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I'm curious because for me, so I have never worked in DEI, but I think a lot of marketers could probably relate to what I'm about to say. Back in that 2022 time period, DEI became real trendy. And everyone was all the marketing teams were putting their own spin on DEI, and so was I. And you know, I thought in the organization we were with that like we meant it for real. But it's been really interesting to see as the administration changed and the culture began to change with it, how we just kind of slid away from not just DEI programs, but just the general values of diversity and inclusion in this country. Like it's just been like a slide down. So I'm curious, you know, it sounds like you were seeing that in the algorithm, but I'm curious if you also saw it out in the real world and in terms of like the actual work you were doing as well.
I did because so the reason why I ended my consulting was because the DI backlash dried up my clientele, and so that first year, um, so I started in 2022, and then at the end of 2022, I got my first client, and so I picked up steam. And then 2023, I got clients and people. I got clients and I got inquiries, you know, and so people would contact me and be like, "Oh, okay," you know, and lots of discovery calls, and people would get cold feet, but you know, that's part of the process. And then around 2024, it just all dried up. Starting beginning of 2024, it just dried up, you know, and so I was just like, wow, you know, and another consultant was saying the same thing on LinkedIn and elsewhere that their clientele just dried up, and so
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I'm not gonna keep doing this, and so I sought full time work again with benefits, and so I let it go. But yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely saw that shift.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's switch gears here into more of the work that you're doing now and what you're focused on right now. So I'm really excited because you have a new book coming out in October. It was never about that, going beyond hate to dismantle everyday racism in America. So talk to me about that. What's your book about?
Sure. So this book is it's geared towards people new to DEI or people sitting on the fence trying to figure out what they can do in this the climate that we're in. And so I definitely definitely seasoned vets are invited to read the book. But like really it's more of like how do I capture the attention and motivate people that are new or on the fence, regardless of whether they're a professional or advocate or whatever or both. And so I try to get people. I try to take an eagle eye approach to racism because I know it's a lot of people, and my work I know is a lot of people who don't have a very good grasp of racism. You know, and they think of it as just I hate so and so because of their skin color or whatever, and that's a very basic it's a third grade definition of racism. You know, like when my wife explained it to our son, like he's like, "Mommy, what's racism?" She's like, "Oh, it's just when you don't like somebody because of their skin color," and that's perfect for an 8-year-old. But for a 40-year-old, it's a lot more. It's for an adult, it's a lot more nuanced than that. And so I try to really walk people through a deep dive explanation into racism, be it and not just overt but covert, how the covert ways it manifests. And so I just try to make it an eye opener a bit, you know. And so yeah, an experienced vet might be like, oh, I already know this, but like someone that's newer intermediate may be like, oh, okay, I never thought about that. And so
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say it's more like big picture, like in a sense of like if I was going to read your book, would I be reading it through the lens of like me as an individual, or is like how can I apply this on a bigger scale? Is it a little bit of both, or
both,
like
yeah.
okay.
So I tackle individual and systemic. Um,
Yeah, because I feel like I tend to, if I was reading it as from like a systemic view, I tend to very quickly go into hopelessness and being like, well, what can I do? I can only
yeah,
really control so much and blah, blah, blah. And like, so I'm glad there is some of that individual in there. Cause like you're saying, even just something as eye opening as like when I learned the term microaggression in college and got to like see some like examples that I was like, oh, okay. Either things I had done that I had to reflect on or things I've seen done and just didn't realize. And like, so it is like you're saying, there's so many small scale things too that just get overlooked. And yeah, I'm excited.
oh,
Obviously I have
I'm
to wait a
glad.
couple months, but yeah,
I'm glad I'm nervous. I never know how it'll resonate. Like I've sent my book to reviewers and I've gotten like mostly good response, but I've gotten some like, I didn't really connect with this, and I thought this was weak. And could you? I'm like, well, thanks for your honesty, but it's like, but it's just like, I don't know. It's just you can't predict or control how people will receive something, and so
Yeah, and they have to be
Yeah.
willing and wanting to dive into that. Like, if somebody just like, if I just sent this book to my grandma or something, like, my grandma would read it, but, bad example, but, like, if I just, like, sent it to a random person, I'm like, "You could use this," they're probably the ones who are more resistant
Right,
to
right,
it,
right, right,
versus,
right.
like, me and Kate are like, "Ooh, I can't wait," and that's because 'cause we're already trying to do what we can and be better people, and, like,
Yeah.
so, and I wonder what those reviewers are like in their real lives.
Well, I mean, they're all like seasoned vets, and so like I chose them because I know them and they do good work and I know a lot and a lot more than I do, and so I chose them because like, okay, is there something I'm missing? But then they were like, oh, who's this book for? And so I had to flush out like this is
Mm,
a book for newer people, and so I think like and I went back and established that in the preface because I don't want someone who's done this for 30 years to be like, I already know this. Who's he talking down to? And
that's
so
super fair, yeah, like,
yeah,
it
yeah,
almost felt condescending because it's like,
yeah, yeah,
"Duh."
yeah, yeah.
But it's not gonna be duh to everybody.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
So
makes sense.
I'm super curious. You talked about like overt and covert racism. And I think that unless you've been literally living under a rock since 2016, and especially over the last, 2 years or whatever, um, I- overt racism is if you're not seeing it, you're not paying attention.
Right.
But covert racism and white supremacy is more by definition harder to spot, and so I'm curious from your perspective, what are some of, and it's especially within like the world of work, and communication and the kinds of things that we talk about on LinkedIn, since that's where we met, like, where do you see covert racism showing up, and where do you think people need to be more aware, maybe dig a little deeper than they have?
Yeah. I see covert racism in terms of like hiring practices. So a lot of people like anti-DI people, you can't hire people based off skin color. Like, well, that's not really what DI is. That's more white racism, white supremacy. Like hiring the good old boy network. But I see it in terms of like people with ethnic sounding names get fewer calls. And I mean, 2026, that's still the case. I remember growing up in the 90s, I heard that, as a teen. And it's still true. Like ethnic sounding names get fewer calls or email, whatever, response emails, texts, it's just like, oh, does this person speak English? Do they speak it well? And so, like, if I'm applying as Paul, versus I'm applying, my birth name is Babatunde, which is Yoruba for the father returns. And so if I applied as Paul versus Babatunde, what kind of response would I get from hiring managers or HR
Mm,
people? So
yeah, it's a good example.
that, and I would just say in terms of performance reviews, so like black employees are generally given poor performance reviews, and so it could be like, you know, you don't smile enough, or you're too quiet, or maybe you talk too much, or you're too assertive, or I don't like your hairstyle, it's ethnic, and just all this stuff that piles up in performance reviews. And we all know performance reviews are tied to to promotion or just keeping your job, and so let's say.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's interesting. So what do you think people miss in most conversations about racism today?
Um, I say people miss it's not just about skin color. And so one example of the post I made the other day about so there was a TikToker that went on a rant and it went viral, and she talked about like it's not that my issue with black people isn't their skin color, it's their culture, the ghetto violent culture. And it's like, and then people supported her like, yeah, see, it's basic pattern recognition. That's not racist. I'm like, well, it still is, because one, you're assuming that black culture is automatically ghetto. You're assuming that black people are ghetto, and then it's like, well, what about the people who don't act ghetto still face racism? Like, look at the Obamas; they got called monkeys or apes or something.
Mhm,
They've been called that, but they got called that recently again. And
mhm.
Michelle Obama gets called a man, but we know she identifies as a woman, and she's proud to be a woman, and she likes being a woman, and she's always dressed well, and she's more educated than Barack, her husband. And just like it's like they're both highly educated, articulate, charismatic people, that care about other people, and then and the garbage they got, you
Yeah,
know. And
yeah.
so it's like, well, they don't act ghetto, but they still face plenty of racism.
Well, and, like, the opposite, I remember growing up with kids who acted white and, they were bullied by their black peers for being,
Yeah,
like, too white, and it's like, "Oh, because they are good in English?" Sorry they like to read and they're good speakers,
yeah,
but
and
100%
and
I've
that's that.
seen you can't win. You're either,
No,
like,
and
too ghetto or too white, there is no it's insane.
I think that shows like internalized racism, because it's like
Yeah.
if like even if you're black, if you're picking on a peer for being too white, you're saying that like being white means more intelligent, more sophisticated. So you've internalized that, and now you're bullying other black people who don't prescribe your idea of blackness, and so it's just like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't win, and it just deeply shows how racism and internalized racism works.
100%. I remember I studied psychology in college, and there was you might even know this study, but there was this study, I don't remember who did it, where they were like showing images of like faces, and you had to like kind of gauge whether you thought it was like more of a criminal or not. And even no matter across the board who was taking the exam, black faces were seen as more criminal, even by their black counterparts. And it was like
Yes.
meant to like show how internalized it is. It's just so ingrained in society.
Yeah.
Same with like to tie it into like other things too, like you brought up before the performance reviews. And a lot of the things you were saying up until the hairstyle was like, yeah, as women, we hear the same shit. And it just shows how like all these systems uphold each other in order to keep the
Yeah.
straight white males in power. And
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
I see all the intersections and it's like insane.
Yeah. Well, let's not talk about autism and ADHD, and we can do that later. But
Yeah, I'm like, God forbid now you're neurodivergent too. You're not even
yeah.
just black. And it's like, God damn, there's
Yeah,
more
it's
to
like,
it.
why are you so quiet? I'm like, I'm just quiet. I mean, I'm not pissed
It's
at
like I
anybody. I'm
speak when I
just,
have something to say.
the
And then when
wrestling
I
bitch face,
say,
the
you
wrestling
think I'm
bitch
too
face we
direct.
had,
So what do you want me to do?
Yeah. Yeah, I found with one pattern that I see all the time is that it doesn't matter like how clearly, kindly, even nicely, politely, it doesn't matter how well you say something. If you're talking about something painful or something that people have a personal responsibility they don't want to acknowledge, they won't listen to you and will look to attack you or stereotype you or whatever in an effort to not have to take seriously what you are saying. And I think in America, racism is like profoundly embedded within to our culture, and everyone, whether we no matter how far along you are on your journey toward anti-racism, or if you're just like blatantly just like fine being racist, like um it's a really hard, painful thing to talk about. And so it doesn't surprise me that we see things like this TikTok influencer, but even more covert things, and this internalized racism, because it allows us to protect ourselves from having to actually look at and encounter racism and do something about it.
Yeah.
So, uh, uh, does that resonate, Paul?
it really does. It reminds me of, I was listening to a therapist talk about addictions, and he was saying how we paint addictions as this demon or monster, and they're not demons or monsters. They're trying to Your addictions are protecting you from something that you don't want to see or confront.
Yeah.
And so what you said, Kate, like a bulb glass is like, so if you hear all these images and these ideas, that's your way of like understanding the world, and like you hold on to because that's protecting you from your examining your own biases and faults and whatever. And so it's like that's why people get so visceral when I bring up white supremacy, and it's not just KKK Nazis, oath keepers, because that's how people view that. And when you say white supremacy, they're thinking extremists. I'm like, no, not just extremists. And
Right.
and then you see like, like the we were retching and just like circuit shorting, because it's like they don't want to realize that they're part of that system. They may not be violent and hateful as those white supremacists, but they're still perpetuating it just in a different way. And that's
Yeah.
just like the cognitive dissonance is just like off the charts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is, for sure. So, what advice do you have for people who are still struggling to have conversations that need to be had around race, um, DEI, neurodivergence, whatever you want? But like, what advice do you have for people that are struggling to have these hard
Yeah.
conversations? And then I'd like, well, actually, answer that first.
Yeah, I invite people to, lean on emotional intelligence. Years ago, a buddy of mine, I don't know how we ended up on this topic. We were chatting on LinkedIn, and I said something to him, and we were back and forth, and he was like, "Yeah, well, emotional intelligence is needed to end racism." And when he said that, I believed him. But as the years went on, it's more and more true. And I think a lot of people when it comes to topics of race, gender, sexuality, um, gender identity, because those are the hot four. It's like emotional intelligence, and so neurodivergence, yeah, but not as much. But it's like how do you what when you're triggered by this, what makes you triggered? Why are you feeling this way, and how can you navigate out of this? And a lot of people just don't have the tools or the quite right questions, and so I bring that up in the book to try to get people to examine themselves so they don't get so when somebody posts about white supremacy or white fragility or trans people or you know patriarchy, like what why are you why are your circuit starting to short all of a sudden, and you starting to retch and twitch and all that, and just
Yeah. Yeah. No, having people look closely at their triggers and try to better understand why those triggers exist and what those triggers are about is so important because I don't know, I'm a white woman. I haven't experienced racism, right? But I have experienced specifically talking about actually white fragility and trying to, I need to have a conversation with you about this other white person, and you are too fragile to listen to me. Stop it. Please read this book, and then maybe you will be less fragile, and then we cannot shatter into a million pieces just because we have a hard conversation. And I have found that is wildly triggering, and it also calls into a lot of people, including myself. It's triggering to even be a part of that kind of interaction. And I still have a lot to learn about it. So it's hard for me to and sometimes I'm just really judgmental, and I try not to be. And I know from an emotional intelligence perspective, there's a way to navigate those conversations that is actually successful. And the way that I'm doing it of read this book because you're an idiot is not the emotional intelligent way to do it. So, but it really comes back to understanding those triggers that make you emotional and spin you up into such a state where it becomes really accusatory and pointing fingers and makes it not productive. So that's great advice for sure.
Mhm.
I just feel like I need to go on my soapbox really quick and say again
Sure.
how society just keeps us hustling and bustling to the point that we don't have the time and space and energy to
Yeah.
slow down and question these things. When I
Yeah.
just worked my 9 to 5 and I get home and I'm making dinner and the kids are running around or my pets or whatever it is, and then I'm
Yeah.
scrolling on Facebook and somebody says something that pisses me off, I'm just going to fight them. I
Yeah.
don't take the time to be like, why is this upsetting me and what can I do? But
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
your point, that is the best way to actually get through to people. I read this book called The Cult of Trump, and it was all about this guy who used to be in a cult and now he's not, but he can recognize the cult that
Huh.
exists. And he gives advice toward the end about how to actually talk to these people and kind of get through to them. You have to have so much calm and patience inside of you. And that's where I struggle because I can't get to the
Yeah.
point where we get through. But asking things well, when did you start to think this? Where did that belief, helping them get back into it, but you have to be able to hold the space to have that conversation. And that's where, even with some of the, people in my life who have been racist or sexist or whatever it is, and I've been trying to, get them to see how, that is not the right way to think. It's hard because depending on
It
what it
is.
is, I start to get very triggered too. Because like you're saying, I just get to the point where I'm like, you're just being stupid, on purpose. But they're not. There is,
Yeah.
They were raised however they were raised, or it's deep rooted for the most part. And then even if it's not deep rooted in them, it's deep rooted in society.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
it's so we don't have our society's not set up for us to reflect the way we actually need to, and that's by design, I think, because who does it benefit when we're all stuck in this? So get off my soapbox, but
Yeah.
I hear it. I'm
Yeah.
like, God, but we just don't have the space. I wish people did, because I think more people would reflect if they felt like they could,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
not a
I mean,
priority for them. A priority is feeding their kids.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and so you hit a nail, Maggie, because you said the cult of Trump. Like, whoa, now I want to check this book out. It,
It's
it
so good. It's,
it makes
I think Stephen Hassan is the
okay, cool.
author. Yeah,
Okay, that's going on my list. I want to check that out.
it's really good.
Uh, this reminds me of there's a guy. I don't know if he has a book, but there's a guy. He has a organization called Leaving MAGA, I think, or and like
Mm.
he gives testimonies on the side of people who left MAGA, and he just the stuff he says, like, wow. So maybe I should, because I think he's also on LinkedIn. Maybe I should DM him and like, hey, can we have a coffee chat or something? I'm just I'm not, like I'm not trying to leave, but I want to like know your
I want to
approach
help
because
the
you're yeah,
cause.
because he's like he's been there, and he knows the mentality. He's out and he's had other people come out. Like, I want to talk to you. I want to learn from you because these conversations are only gonna get more important as the months and years roll on. Like this won't last forever. Manga will be gone, but the effects will be here for a while. And so we'll
Yeah.
need in the coming years, if not decades, we'll need to have conversations to
Yeah.
heal, and so like I'm like, maybe I should DM this guy, like, hey, can we meet? Can we do a coffee chat or something? Or.
I think you should. That sounds
Yeah.
like it would be an incredible conversation for
And
sure.
then record it and post it for us all to, to
Yeah,
learn
we can
from.
all watch it. Yeah.
No, just
Yeah.
kidding, but awesome.
So this is reminding me, so for our like last question here, let's wrap up with this. This is kind of reminding me of, because I think it's hard enough to do this that we're talking about and, but pay attention to our triggers and slow down and whatever. It's hard to do it in person. I've found it's wildly much easier to do in person when you have the benefit of body language and I'm not actively going to like rip your hair out or something like it might seem like I'm metaphorically doing if I'm speaking to you on the internet or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just have found in my own experience that if I'm able to get in the same room or like on the same sidewalk or whatever as someone, that the conversations become a bit easier, although still very hard. Do you recommend that people have these kinds of conversations on social media, specifically LinkedIn, but also more so on places like Facebook and Threads and, God forbid, Twitter or wherever else?
You mean like a face or like a video call, video conversation, some sort of?
No, I mean, like, should we go in the comments section and try to
Oh,
have non-triggered
oh.
conversations about changing people's minds about racism?
Yeah, we should. I don't know how effective it is, but we should. It's better than not saying anything. For me, like, I know when I get a troll, or even if it's not a troll, just somebody that strongly disagrees and just wants to argue, there's a good chance I'm not going to change them with that conversation, but I do it as an example to people that are watching. And
Yeah.
so, like, those fence sitters or people that are new or unsure or whatever, or just not know about DI, like, I do it for my audience. And because it's like if I'm arguing with someone, having a conversation, that person I argue with probably won't change, but and I'll have more might happen to for somebody that's reading that thread.
Sure.
And so there's so many cases where like I get in an argument with somebody and I get validation from my followers or people that haven't followed me yet, but they just see the conversation. So like I do it for them. And I also do it to boost engagement on post. But strategically, because I know that the more you argue, the higher engagement it gets, and they still don't realize that. And sometimes I tell them like, by you arguing, you're increasing the reach of this post, and they don't stop. So I'm like, all right, well, but
Mm.
it's so yeah, we should.
Maggie, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I feel like I heard you should definitely stand up for it so people can see like your thoughts, but don't expect to change that person's mind.
Right.
And that's like I always say like networking calls too. Like I never expect the person I'm having a coffee chat with is gonna be my client. I expect they know other people. And so it's like same here. I don't expect this idiot's gonna change his mind, but a lot of people can read this thread later and agree with one of us, and hopefully it's me.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh my
Super
gosh, that reminds me, gosh, I'm just bringing back memories of posts that have got all the arguments with people, and it's just something else.
Nice.
I super agree.
All right. That was good answers. I like it. This was a great conversation, Paul, as always. I always love chatting with you, and we'll have to have you back once Maggie and I have had a chance to read your book, because I'm sure
All
we'll
right.
have lots of questions and lots of interesting things there. So we will drop links to follow Paul, stay in touch with Paul when his book pre-order link comes out. We'll make sure that's there as well. But definitely make sure you stay tuned to Paul and watch for his book. It Was Never About That, coming out in October.
Thanks for listening to Honestly Though with Maggie and Kate. We're being so honest about the fact that we really want you to join the conversation.
Drop us a comment, email us a question, or submit a conversation starter for a future episode. You can find out how down in the show notes. See you next week.